No, I can't do it again. I cannot sit through another one of those freaking broadcasts in a third game. Whoa, you can finally skip the broadcast in Splatoon 3? 10 out of 10, baby. And that small tweak might legitimately be one of the best changes here in a sequel that's more about incremental improvements than it is reinventing the wheel. Which includes things like an improved online lobby system, 24/7 Salmon Run finally, along with some gameplay refinements. But does it all warrant dipping back in for a third time? Well, we've been playing it on and off for the past week to find out in GameXplain's review of Splatoon 3. And diving back in reminded me of why I love Splatoon so much in the first place. It just feels good! Whether it's the yin and yang of swimming and shooting, or even the simple joy of just moving around. Splatoon's core handling just works on the level that few other third-person shooters can match. And good thing for that too, because there's not a whole lot else that's truly new here. There's no new modes outside of the limited time tricolor battles, the campaign doesn't offer much that we haven't seen before, and even most of the multiplayer maps return from past games. The biggest improvements generally lie in the quality of life updates, like the completely revamped lobby system that now features an actual physical space to explore where you can easily join up with friends and train together while waiting. And in your downtime, you can do other things here too, like review previous match stats, or buy food for gameplay bonuses, and more. Now once in a game, whether it's Turf War or one of the 4 ranked Anarchy battle modes, the gameplay is the same classic Splatoon action you may already know and hopefully love. And I'm happy to say they're all still a wonderful time. The short matches makes it hard to put down, and it almost always ensures a fight to the finish, especially in the final 30 seconds, which is thrilling. I also really like the new GoldenEye-like medals that you get after each match. You're darn right I'm the #1 splatter, although one thing I don't like is how long the game now takes to display your individual score after a match is finished. But for as fun as these battles still are, there isn't much in these modes to set it apart from past games. Being able to choose where in your team's base that you start at is kinda cool, I guess, but it doesn't seem like it changes all that much besides possibly reducing spawn camping. And the couple of new moves, being Squid Roll and Squid Surge, feel like minor additions. Although, to be fair, I'm still trying to commit them to muscle memory. Perhaps most disappointingly, the initial map selection feels uninspired. And not just because 7 of the 12 maps return from past games, albeit in updated form, but more because they all seem to follow similar design principles, sharing an overall boxy look and feel, without much in the way of distinctive elements or big elevation changes. It left me longing for the days of Splatoon 1's steep moray towers, or the gentle curves of Black Bailey Skate Park, or the side passages of Urchin Underpass. Now I don't hate the maps here, I really like how Scorched Gorge looks for instance, and the changing water level in Hagelfish Market is still pretty cool, but most of the time it felt like I was playing the same basic map over and over and over. Splatoon 3 also brings back all of the weapons from previous games, while adding in 2 new types of its own, the Stringer and Splatana, both of which are based around charging and reward a slightly slower, more methodical type of gameplay, which isn't quite my style, so I found myself bouncing off of them pretty quick, but I'm sure some others out there will love them. Instead, I actually discovered a newfound appreciation for the dualies that returned from Splatoon 2, as I love their rapid-fire capabilities and dodge roll, which is especially useful for evading some of the new special attacks, like those pesky crab tanks. And speaking of the specials, not only are there more of them than ever before, but they might just be the best in the series yet, although I'll need a bit more time to say that definitively. But for now, I really am loving that crab tank, which turns you into a slow-moving but powerful turret, which also has morph ball capabilities. Splatoon's typical gear system returns here too, where headgear, shoes, and clothing each have their own set of attributes, including each of them having a set amount of randomly decided upgrades when you level them up. Now, I've always found the system to be a bit weird, as it puts new players at an inherent disadvantage with weaker gear, while also leaving their upgrade path largely to chance. It still works fine, as it always has, but it is a weird system that I wouldn't mind it being reimagined. Moving on, Salmon Run is also back, and yes, it still totally rocks. Especially because you can finally now play it whenever you want to, without it being locked at set times. Thank goodness. Now, while the core gameplay is mostly unchanged, still being a cooperative 4-player challenge to grab as many eggs as you can while surviving 3 increasingly challenging waves of enemies, it's arguably the most enhanced part of the game. First, you can now throw eggs in the basket to save you the hassle of running all the way back to it each time, which not only keeps games faster paced, but also adds a new risk versus reward mechanic as it'll cost you a good portion of your ink. But it's the new bosses that really help freshen the entire experience, such as the towering fish stick that requires a quick ascent, or the UFO-like slam and lid, where you have just a brief window to hop aboard after they slam down. The new bosses, on top of all the returning ones, make Salmon Run feel even more intense and fun than before, especially when you factor in the brand new 4th wave that randomly happens featuring a freaking kaiju. Yep, the King Salmonoid is a beast, and you only have a limited time to try and take him down. partially by launching the very eggs that you've collected right back at him. It's intense and awesome. Basically, I loved Salmon Run before, and I might love it even more now. The new bosses and egg throwing mechanics really help freshen it up, and it being available at any time is long overdue. Now, regardless of which mode you play online, Splatoon 3 ran flawlessly in my testing, without any obvious lag, erratic movements, or significantly delayed splats. Although, I did encounter my fair share of simultaneous splats, which could be a symptom of a lower tick rate like in Splatoon 2, and that could possibly annoy some players. Another element I'm not exactly thrilled about is how the game abruptly ends if any single player disconnects in the first half of a round. I get this happens so that one team is left at a disadvantage for most of the match by being down a player, but there has to be a less intrusive way of handling it. Whether by swapping in a bot, or capping the amount of players the other team can have out at once, or maybe something else. Point is, it's a real buzzkill every time it happens. Of course, what's Splatoon to be complete without a single player campaign too? And this time, it borrows liberally from Splatoon 2's Octo expansion, as it features the same type of objective-based stages that award power eggs for completion. And you'll need those eggs for all kinds of things, like skill tree upgrades, or paying the entry fee for some stages, or even retrying a failed challenge if you run out of lives. But perhaps most importantly, you'll also need them to clear out all the fuzzy ooze that constantly gets in your way, because it's everywhere. It's basically mammalian malice, except even more annoying as it's super easy to accidentally run into and it'll instantly take you out. So to get rid of it, you'll have to infuse your little buddy with enough power eggs and then chuck them at the bulging section that each ooze section has to open the way. And that's the basic gameplay loop. Beat stages to earn power eggs, and use them to clear out the ooze to access more stages until you reach the boss and continue on to the next world. It's a nice twist on the usual find each level format, but I didn't particularly love having to deal with the fuzzy ooze everywhere. Now, like in Octo expansion, the objectives for each level can vary, from simply reaching the goal to clearing out all the enemies to something a bit more unusual like collecting all the eggs, or should I say dots, in the Pac-Man-like maze. A couple of my favorites included a curling challenge where I had to destroy all the targets with carefully placed throws, or another where I had to destroy just the right boxes to make a particular shape. Now, although most of the levels are still ultimately about reaching a goal, there's enough variety in them that kept me far more engaged than Splatoon 2's main campaign, although it may fall a little short of the sheer variety seen in the Octo expansion. Now, for better or worse, the challenges continue to take place within the floating void, which is starting to grow a bit stale 4 campaigns in. Sure, there's still some beautiful looking backdrops to try and distract you from that, but it's only skin deep. And even then, they're still pretty much entirely static models. Shouldn't there be cars or something driving around that city? It's all a little disappointing given that it seemed the reveal trailer might have been teasing a bit more. But as it turns out, the Splatlands basically are just an elaborate tutorial. On the other hand, the hub is probably the most unique it's ever been in a Splatoon campaign, being much larger than ever before and more focused on exploration, as it's where you'll find all of the game's hidden collectibles, and thankfully your little buddy's there to help you suss it all out. Kind of like the dog in Fable, but sadly you can't pet the little guy, which is truly a crime when he's this cute with the adorable Karen haircut I gave him. Unfortunately, the little buddy is sadly underutilized outside of the main hub, as not only does he only appear in levels when you equip the hero set of weapons, but he doesn't even do all that much. All you can really do with him is toss him at an enemy and watch him slowly take them down Pikmin style. And I only found it useful at a couple of points during the campaign, such as by using him to attack one enemy, thereby distracting the others nearby and giving me an opening. But outside of those exceptions in the hub world, I mostly forgot he even existed. For a campaign that's marketed as concluding the Splatoon trilogy, there still isn't a ton of story here, with what little there is bookending the campaign. But I will say that it ended in an overall satisfactory manner, featuring a really compelling final hour that includes some unique gameplay, fun encounters, unexpected plot twists, and a final battle that blows Splatoon 2's out of the water, or ink as it may be. Although it still can't quite top the amazing final battle of the first game. So overall, despite feeling mostly familiar, the campaign isn't a bad way to spend the 6 to 7 hours it might take to see it through, or even longer if you're going for 100%. Presentation-wise, Splatoon 3 still looks and sounds great, with bright bold colors and a catchy soundtrack to match. The ink effects still impress, especially with how it deforms as you swim through it, and the game runs at a rock-solid 60 frames per second at all times, except when exploring the Splatsville hub, which is relegated to 30. But that's nothing new for the series. Speaking of the city hub, it's much bigger than ever before, perhaps a little needlessly so. But I kinda dig how much there is to explore now, and you can always bring up the map to quick travel to exactly where you want to be. Furthermore, I love how the city looks during Splatfests, coming to life with an energy and vibe that only Splatoon can provide. Oh, and speaking of Splatfests, although I wasn't able to try out any more of them for the review, I am a big fan of how fresh the tricolor mode felt during the demo. I just wish the rest of the game had more of that sparkling new feel. Playing through Splatoon 3 reminded me of why Splatoon is so special in the first place, as there's nothing quite like it out there. Where else can you spray ink using buckets or super soakers, then swim through it as a freaking squid, before turning into a robotic crab to mow down your opponents? It's still frantic fun even in its third outing. And I really do appreciate some of the new quality of life features that remove some of the friction. But it's also hard to ignore that in its current state, that the once fresh scent might finally be wearing off. Which means that, although new players are almost surely in for a treat, returning players might find themselves wishing for a little more. But here's the thing, the Splatoon 3 that I'm playing right now probably won't be the same Splatoon 3 that exists in a few months or even years from now, as we already know that more maps, weapons, and modes are coming. It's just a matter of time, and it might eventually turn into that fresher experience that I was hoping for. But as for right now, Splatoon 3 feels like a marginally improved Splatoon 2. Which is to say, it's still a ton of fun, especially with the new Salmon Run mode, and I liked it a lot. But hopefully I'll grow to love it in the future too. And there you have it everyone, GameXplain's review of Splatoon 3. Thank you so much for watching, and of course make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Splatoon 3 and everything else Nintendo Switch. We'll catch you later. Bye everyone!